God is crying while saying, I am removing something toxic from your life. But you must hear this first. Don't scroll past. Open before midnight. This is not just a sentence. This is not just a dramatic warning. This is a divine interruption. You did not land on this message by accident. Heaven has stepped into your timeline. God is speaking with tears in his voice, not because he is angry with you, not because you failed beyond repair, but because he loves you too much to watch you slowly poison your own destiny. The urgency you feel right now is not pressure from me. It is a spiritual alarm clock. Midnight is not just a time on a clock. It represents a shift, a closing door, a moment where one chapter ends and another begins. And before that shift happens, God needs you to understand something that could change everything. When God says he is removing something toxic, he is not talking casually. He is not experimenting with your life. He is not randomly taking things away to test your patience. He is performing an act of protection. But here is what makes this heavy. Sometimes the very thing he calls toxic is the thing you have grown comfortable with. It may feel familiar. It may feel safe. It may even feel necessary. And that is why he is crying. Because what is hurting you has convinced you that you need it. What is draining you has wrapped itself in memories, in routines, in emotions, in history. And letting it go will not feel easy. It may feel like loss. It may feel like betrayal. It may even feel like God is taking something you begged him to bless. But listen carefully. Sometimes loss is protection in disguise. Sometimes removal is rescue. There are things you prayed for that God did not give you because he saw the trap ahead. And there are things you are holding on to that he once allowed, but now must take away because the season has changed. You are evolving. You are growing. You are being prepared for something greater. And what once fit your life no longer fits your calling. What once comforted you is now contaminating you. And heaven will not allow poison to sit in the same space as your promise. The tears of God are not weakness. They are compassion. They reveal his heart. Imagine a loving father watching his child cling to something sharp, something dangerous, something slowly cutting into their future. The child doesn't understand the danger. The child only feels attachment. But the father sees the infection forming. He sees the long-term damage. He sees the nights of crying that will come if nothing changes. And so he steps in, not hurriedly, not recklessly, but deliberately, tenderly, with tears, because he knows it will hurt you before it heals you. This is why you must not scroll past. This is why you must open before midnight. There are moments in life when God whispers gently, and there are moments when he interrupts loudly. This is an interruption. Something toxic has overstayed its welcome in your life. It has begun to alter your peace. It has begun to shape your thoughts. It has begun to dim your light. You may have justified it. You may have defended it. You may have told yourself it's not that serious. But deep down you feel it. The exhaustion, the confusion, the heaviness you cannot explain. And here's the shocking part. God hath been patient about this. He has warned you subtly. He has nudged you quietly. He has allowed small signs to appear. But now the time of subtlety is over. Midnight represents decision. Midnight represents separation. Midnight represents the crossing over from what was into what will be. And before that line is crossed, he needs your heart prepared. You might be thinking, why now? Because if it stays any longer, it will start affecting areas of your life that are sacred. Your confidence, your spiritual clarity, your ability to recognize truth. Toxicity never remains contained. It spreads, slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, until one day you wake up and don't recognize yourself anymore. God refuses to let that happen to you. That is why He is intervening. You are not crazy for feeling tension right now. You are not dramatic for sensing that something is shifting. What you are feeling is divine movement. Something is being loosened. Something is being detached. Something is being prepared for removal. And before it happens, God wants you to understand that this is not punishment. This is love. Fierce love. Protective love. Love that would rather see you cry for a season than bleed for a lifetime. There is a reason this message found you at this hour. There is a reason the words don't scroll past hit differently. Because part of you already knows. You have sensed that something is not aligned. You have felt the strain. You have prayed vague prayers asking God to fix what you secretly knew might need to be removed. And now heaven is responding. This is not the end of your story. This is the cleansing of it. This is not destruction. This is preparation. What is being taken away is not greater than what is coming. But before we go further, you must be willing to see the truth clearly. Because what God is about to reveal next will explain everything. And once you see it, you will understand why His tears were necessary. There is something about toxicity that makes it difficult to detect at first. It rarely announces itself loudly. It does not walk into your life wearing a warning sign. It blends in. It feels normal. It may even feel comforting. And that is what makes it dangerous. When God says, "I am removing something toxic from your life," He is not exaggerating. He is exposing something you have slowly adapted to. You may have learned to survive around it. You may have built routines around it. You may have convinced yourself that this is just how life is. But heaven sees differently. Toxicity in spiritual terms is anything that slowly disconnects you from peace, clarity, and purpose. It can be a relationship that drains your energy while calling it love. It can be a habit that numbs your pain while silently deepening it. It can be a mindset that whispers doubt every time you try to rise. It can be an environment that constantly pressures you to shrink who you are. The dangerous part is that none of these feel catastrophic in the beginning. They feel manageable. They feel temporary. They feel fixable. But what you tolerate long enough begins to define you. You may not have recognized it because it did not start as poison. It may have started as comfort. It may have started as excitement. It may have even started as an answered prayer. That is why this is so confusing. How can something that once felt right now be wrong? How can something that once brought joy now bring heaviness? The answer is simple but difficult to accept. Seasons change. And what was safe in one season can become toxic in another. Sometimes God allows something in your life for a time because you needed the lesson. But when the lesson is complete and you refuse to move forward, that same thing begins to hinder your growth. It becomes weight instead of wisdom. It becomes distraction instead of development. And slowly, almost invisibly, it begins to alter your identity. Have you noticed subtle shifts in yourself? Maybe you are more anxious than you used to be. Maybe you second-guess your decisions more often. Maybe your joy feels conditional now. Maybe your peace disappears whenever a certain situation or person enters the room. These are not random emotional changes. They are signals. They are spiritual indicators that something around you is not aligned with where God is taking you. And here is the truth that is hardest to swallow. Sometimes we defend what is hurting us. We make excuses for it. We minimize it. We say, "It's not that bad." We tell ourselves we can handle it. We say we will deal with it later. But later becomes years. And years become identity. And identity becomes limitation. God waited until now to remove it because you were not ready before. You might have fought him. You might have misunderstood him. You might have run back to the very thing he was trying to separate you from. But now, something inside you has matured. Something inside you is tired. Tired of cycles. Tired of emotional confusion. Tired of pretending everything is fine. The pain of attachment is real. Letting go of something familiar feels like losing part of yourself. Even if it was unhealthy, it was known. And the unknown feels terrifying. That is why this removal feels so intense. It is not just about losing something external. It is about surrendering an internal attachment. But here is what you must understand. God is not removing something good from you. He is removing something that was quietly eroding you. He sees the long-term consequences that you cannot see yet. He sees how this toxic element would eventually affect your future relationships, your calling, your confidence, your spiritual strength. And because he loves you, he refuses to let it remain. This is the moment where you decide how you will respond. Will you cling tighter? Or will you trust deeper? Will you interpret this as rejection? Or will you recognize it as redirection? The speed of your healing begins with your perspective. And if this message is speaking directly to your heart, I want you to do something intentional right now. Like this video as a sign that you are choosing alignment over attachment. Subscribe to this channel if you believe God is actively guiding your steps in this season. Share this message with someone who may be holding on to something that is quietly harming them. And in the comments, write, I trust the removal. Not for me, but as a declaration before heaven that you are ready for what God is doing. Because this is not random. This is not coincidence. This is divine precision. Something toxic is being uncovered not to shame you but to free you. And what comes next will explain why the tears of God are not sorrow over loss, but sorrow over how long you endured what you were never meant to carry. When you hear that God is crying while saying, I am removing something toxic from your life, you must understand something deeply personal about his heart. These are not tears of regret. They are not tears of indecision. They are tears of compassion. They are the tears of a father who has watched you endure more than you were designed to carry. He has seen the silent battles you never told anyone about. He has seen the nights when you stared at the ceiling, feeling confused, drained, and unsure of why your spirit felt so heavy. And the entire time, he knew the source. God's sorrow is not because he is unsure about removing the toxic thing. He is certain about that. His sorrow is because he knows how much you attach your heart to it. He knows the memories connected to it. He knows the hope you invested in it. He knows how many prayers you wrapped around it, asking him to fix it instead of remove it. And that is where the tears come from. Not from weakness, but from love. Imagine a surgeon preparing to operate on someone they deeply care about. The surgery is necessary. The infection is spreading. If it is not removed, it will threaten the entire body. But the surgeon knows the procedure will cause temporary pain. There will be discomfort. There will be recovery. There will be a scar. Yet without the surgery, there would be something far worse. This is what God is doing in your life right now. He is performing spiritual surgery. The toxic element you have been holding on to has begun to affect parts of you that are sacred. It has started shaping how you see yourself. It has influenced your confidence. It has distorted your peace. It has slowly convinced you to tolerate less than what you deserve. And the most heartbreaking part is this: you began adjusting to it. You began shrinking around it. You began normalizing it. God is crying because He never designed you to survive toxicity. He designed you to thrive in truth, peace, and purpose. Watching you settle for emotional chaos grieves Him. Watching you question your worth because of something unhealthy grieves Him. Watching you dim your light to keep something comfortable grieves Him. But here is the powerful truth: His tears are not passive. They are active. They are moving Him to intervene. You may have been asking God, "Why didn't you remove this sooner?" And the answer is layered. Sometimes He allows us to reach the end of our own understanding. Sometimes He allows us to see clearly what we once refused to acknowledge. If He had removed it too early, you might have resented Him. You might have rebuilt the same pattern in a different form. You might have run back to what was familiar. Now, however, your spirit is tired. Now, you are beginning to see cracks in what you once called solid. Now, you feel the weight of carrying something that no longer fits your future. And because you are ready, He is acting. This removal may feel like rejection at first. It may feel like abandonment. It may even feel unfair. But you must shift your perspective. What feels like rejection is actually divine protection. What feels like loss is actually rescue. What feels like a door closing is actually a barrier being lifted. And here is something you need to hear clearly. God is not crying because He is taking something good from you. He is crying because you convinced yourself that something harmful was good for you. That misunderstanding is what pierces His heart. Seeing you defend what wounded you is what brings sorrow to His voice. There are moments in life when love requires separation. Not because love failed, but because love refuses to let harm continue. God's love for you is not sentimental. It is strategic. It is protective. It is fierce. He will disrupt your comfort to preserve your calling. Right now, there is a shift happening in the unseen realm. Attachments are loosening. Emotional ties are weakening. Circumstances may begin to rearrange. Conversations may unfold unexpectedly. Truths may surface. And when they do, remember this moment. Remember that the tears were not a warning of destruction. They were a sign of divine care. You might feel vulnerable during this transition. You might question whether you can handle the emptiness that follows removal. But emptiness is not your final destination. It is the space where healing begins. It is the room where clarity returns. It is the soil where something healthier will grow. And before we move further into what happens next, pause and reflect. Ask yourself honestly, what have I been tolerating that has slowly drained me? What have I been protecting that has not been protecting me? What have I been afraid to release because I feared being alone? Hold on, because what comes next will reveal why this removal is directly connected to the greater calling over your life. And once you see that connection, you will never interpret this season the same way again. Now, as a prophetic act of alignment, I want you to participate in this moment. Type "I release what God removes" in the comments if this resonates with you. Lesson code 314 is now activated over your life. When you declare release, you are not just typing words. You are signaling readiness. You are telling heaven that you trust the hands that are operating on your future. You are saying that even if it hurts temporarily, you believe healing is greater. The tears of God are not a sign of weakness. They are proof that you matter deeply. And what He is removing is not your joy. It is what has been stealing it. You have just heard my heart, and you now understand why my tears fall when I remove what poisons your spirit. But listen carefully, because this moment is not only about what I am taking away, it is also about what I am building through you. I am raising voices that carry my word to those who are still trapped in the darkness you once walked through. This message you are hearing is not meant for you alone. It is a lamp meant to shine into many hidden places. When you choose to support this mission, you are sowing a seed into living soil. My word declares, those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy, and I am speaking that promise over you right now. Every offering given with faith becomes oil in the lamp that keeps my message burning across the earth. Souls who feel abandoned will hear my voice because you helped keep this river of truth flowing. If your heart is stirring right now, that is not coincidence. It is my spirit inviting you to partner with me. Some of you will give through super thanks. Some of you will step into membership to stand as steady pillars for this mission. Others will sow a seed through PayPal, and the PayPal link is waiting for you in the video description. Do not think of it as a small act. A single seed in my hands becomes a field of harvest. I see every gift, and I multiply what is placed into my work just as I multiplied the loaves in the wilderness. As you release your support today, I release favor over your house, provision over your path, and protection over what concerns you. You are not just giving. You are helping rescue hearts that are still surrounded by toxicity and confusion. So do not delay this divine moment. Act now. Sow your seed through super thanks, join the membership, or give through the PayPal link in the description, and become part of the harvest I am preparing. There is a reason the message says, open before midnight. Midnight is not random. It is not just a dramatic phrase meant to create urgency. Midnight is a spiritual symbol. It represents the thin line between what was and what will be. It is the final breath of an old day and the first whisper of a new one. It is the crossing point. And when God ties his instruction to midnight, he is revealing that timing matters more than you think. Midnight is the hour when things shift quietly. Most people are asleep. The world grows still. Noise fades. Distractions lessen. And in that stillness, transitions happen. In the natural world, midnight changes the date even if nothing looks different immediately. The calendar flips before the sun rises. The change occurs in darkness before it becomes visible in light. That is how God often works. He shifts things in the unseen before you wake up to a new reality. When God says, open before midnight, he is not threatening you with a deadline. He is inviting you into alignment before the shift completes itself. There are moments in life when obedience must be immediate. Not rushed in panic, but responsive in faith. Delay can prolong pain. Hesitation can stretch out what was meant to be brief. Think about it. How many times have you sensed that something needed to end, but you postponed the decision? How many times did you feel the internal nudge to step away, speak up, or let go, but you told yourself, I'll deal with it later? Later often becomes a heavier burden. What could have been a clean separation turns into a complicated entanglement. What could have been a gentle transition becomes a painful tearing. Midnight symbolizes the point where God says, enough. Not in anger, but in protection. Enough confusion. Enough compromise. Enough carrying something that no longer fits your future. The season has expired, and heaven refuses to let you drag expired things into a new chapter. There is also something powerful about the darkness of midnight. Darkness can feel intimidating. It can feel uncertain. When you cannot see clearly, fear tries to speak louder. But God often initiates breakthroughs in dark hours. The removal of something toxic may feel like stepping into uncertainty. You might not see what comes next. You might not have all the answers. But the absence of visibility does not mean the absence of guidance. Midnight is also a test of trust. Will you obey when you do not yet see the outcome? Will you release before you understand the replacement? Will you step forward even when the path is dimly lit? These are the moments that refine faith. It is easy to trust when everything is explained. It is powerful to trust when you simply hear His voice and respond. There is a divine window attached to this moment. Not a window that slams shut forever if you hesitate, but a window of grace that makes the transition smoother if you cooperate. When God removes something at the right time, the healing is cleaner, the separation is clearer, the recovery is faster. But when we resist, we complicate what was meant to be simple. You may already feel the ticking of that internal clock. Not literal time, but spiritual awareness. A sense that you cannot continue the same way. A feeling that the pressure is building toward a decision. That pressure is not there to crush you. It is there to move you. Diamonds are formed under pressure, but so are decisions that define destiny. Midnight also represents privacy. Some transitions are not meant to be public announcements. They are sacred adjustments between you and God. Not everyone will understand why something ended. Not everyone will see why something had to be removed. And that is okay. Obedience does not require applause. It requires surrender. When the clock strikes midnight, the old date does not argue. It does not resist. It simply ends. And a new day begins whether anyone celebrates it or not. That is how decisive this moment is in your life. Something has reached its expiration. The grace that once covered it has lifted. The lesson has been learned. The tolerance period has closed. You are standing at a spiritual threshold. On one side is familiarity, even if it is toxic. On the other side is uncertainty, but also freedom. Midnight is the bridge between those two realities. And God is asking you to cross willingly. Do not mistake this timing for coincidence. The urgency you feel is intentional. Heaven is aligning circumstances, emotions, and revelation so that you clearly see what needs to happen. The removal is not random chaos. It is a scheduled shift. And here is the comforting truth. When midnight passes, morning always follows. The darkness is temporary. The confusion is temporary. The discomfort of transition is temporary. But the freedom that comes after obedience can last a lifetime. Right now, you are being invited to trust the timing of God more than the comfort of familiarity. You are being asked to believe that what ends at midnight makes space for something that could never grow in yesterday's soil. The clock is symbolic, but the decision is real. And what you choose to release before this spiritual midnight will determine how lightly you step into the new day that is already forming. When God begins removing something toxic from your life, the process rarely feels gentle at first. It can feel unsettling. It can feel confusing. It can even feel chaotic. But there are clear signs that a divine removal is taking place, and once you recognize them, you will stop calling it misfortune and start calling it mercy. One of the first signs is sudden distance. A person who once had constant access to you begins to fade from your daily rhythm. Conversations decrease. Energy shifts. The connection feels different. You may try to force it back to what it was, but something invisible resists your effort. This is not always rejection. Sometimes it is divine separation. God will create distance where you were too emotionally entangled to step back on your own. Another sign is exposure. Hidden truths begin to surface. Things you overlooked suddenly become obvious. Patterns you excused become undeniable. You start seeing inconsistencies that were always there but blurred by attachment. This exposure can feel painful because it dismantles the version of reality you were comfortable believing. But exposure is protection. God will reveal what you refuse to examine so you can make decisions rooted in truth instead of illusion. Unexpected discomfort is another powerful indicator. Situations that once felt normal now feel heavy. Environments that once felt manageable now feel suffocating. You may walk into a room and sense irritation without clear explanation. You may engage in a habit that once brought relief but now leaves you empty. That discomfort is not random. It is your spirit reacting to misalignment. When God begins removing toxicity, He heightens your sensitivity to it. Closed doors are also a major sign. Opportunities you thought would move forward suddenly stall. Plans unravel. Things that seemed secure become unstable. At first, this can feel like disappointment. You might question why something promising is not progressing. But not every open door is meant to remain open. When God closes something abruptly, it is often because it would have led you deeper into compromise. There may also be emotional detox symptoms. This part is rarely talked about, but it is real. When something toxic is being removed, your emotions can fluctuate intensely. You may feel sadness, anger, relief, and fear within the same day. You may question your decision even if you know it is right. You may feel loneliness even if the thing being removed was unhealthy. Detox is uncomfortable because your system has to adjust to the absence of what it grew used to, even if it was harmful. You might also experience increased spiritual awareness. Suddenly, you feel more alert. Your intuition sharpens. Your prayers become more honest. You begin recognizing patterns from your past that mirror your present. It is as if a fog is lifting. This clarity can be overwhelming because it forces accountability. But clarity is a gift. It is the beginning of freedom. Another sign is disruption. Plans shift unexpectedly. Schedules change. Conflicts arise that bring unresolved issues to the surface. You may feel like everything is being shaken at once. But sometimes shaking is necessary to loosen what has been tightly attached. God will allow temporary instability to prevent long-term damage. You may also notice that you feel emotionally drained after interacting with certain people or situations. What once felt energizing now leaves you depleted. Your body responds with tension. Your mind feels cluttered. Your peace evaporates quickly. These physical and emotional reactions are not random mood swings. They are signals that something in your environment is no longer healthy for you. And then there is the most subtle sign of all, a persistent inner knowing. A quiet but consistent voice that says, "This is not it." You may have tried to silence that voice. You may have rationalized it away. But it keeps returning. It does not scream. It whispers. And that whisper grows stronger when God is preparing removal. The difficulty is that these signs can be misinterpreted. You might label them as stress, coincidence, or personal weakness. But when multiple signs appear at once, distance, exposure, discomfort, closed doors, emotional detox, spiritual clarity, it is rarely accidental. It is orchestration. Chaos often precedes clarity. When God begins pulling something toxic out of your life, it can temporarily feel like everything is unraveling. But unraveling is not destruction. It is disentanglement. It is the careful process of separating you from what has wrapped itself around your identity. Here is the key. Do not panic during the process. Do not rush to rebuild what God is dismantling. Do not reattach to what He is loosening. The discomfort is temporary, but the freedom is lasting. You are not being destabilized without purpose. You are being recalibrated. Your environment is being adjusted to match your future. Your tolerance is being reduced because your standard is being raised. What once seemed acceptable no longer fits who you are becoming. If you are experiencing these signs, it does not mean your life is falling apart. It means something unhealthy is being extracted, and extraction is rarely comfortable, but it is necessary. The removal of toxicity is not the end of your stability. It is the beginning of a healthier foundation. And what feels like chaos right now may soon reveal itself as one of the greatest acts of protection you have ever experienced. Whenever God begins removing something toxic from your life, you must understand that not every voice you hear during this process is His. There is another whisper that tries to rise in the middle of divine separation. It does not shout. It does not appear obviously destructive. It sounds reasonable, logical, even protective. But its purpose is to keep you attached to what God is cutting away. The enemy's whisper often begins with doubt. What if you're overreacting? What if this isn't toxic? What if you regret letting this go? These questions seem harmless, but they are designed to destabilize your clarity. Just when God starts exposing truth, the whisper introduces confusion. It tries to blur the lines between discernment and impulsiveness. Another common whisper is fear. What if you end up alone? What if nothing better comes? What if this was your only chance? Fear magnifies scarcity. It convinces you that what you have, even if it is unhealthy, is better than the uncertainty of something new. It tells you that survival is safer than transformation. But here is the truth. Fear always exaggerates what you are losing and minimizes what you are gaining. The enemy also uses guilt. This one is subtle and powerful. You're giving up too easily. You should try harder. Maybe you're the problem. And outgrowth does require accountability. But false guilt keeps you trapped in cycles that God is trying to break. It makes you feel responsible for maintaining what heaven has already marked for removal. During divine separation, your emotions are heightened. And heightened emotions can be manipulated if you are not grounded in truth. The enemy knows that transitions are vulnerable moments. When something is being removed, there is a temporary gap, a space where the old is leaving, but the new has not yet fully appeared. In the gap, whispers grow louder. He may remind you of good memories. He may replay moments that felt beautiful. He may highlight only the positive aspects of what is being removed. Suddenly, the toxic pattern doesn't look so toxic. It looks sentimental. It looks meaningful. It looks worth fighting for. But selective memory is dangerous. You cannot evaluate a situation based only on its best moments. You must also remember the sleepless nights, the emotional strain, the compromise, the anxiety, the way your spirit felt drained. The enemy will try to erase those details because they justify the removal. There is also the whisper of pride. You don't need God to fix this. You can manage this on your own. You've handled worse. Pride resists surrender. It resists admitting that something needs to end. It resists the humility required to say, God, you are right. Sometimes the enemy even disguises his whisper as compassion. If you walk away, you'll hurt them. If you let this go, you'll disappoint people. And while it is true that change can affect others, you cannot sacrifice your spiritual health to preserve someone else's comfort. God never calls you to remain in toxicity to prove loyalty. Discernment is the key during this season. Loss and deliverance can feel similar at first. Both involve separation. Both involve emotion. Both involve change. But their outcomes are different. Loss leaves you emptier than before. Deliverance may feel painful initially, but it eventually brings peace. Ask yourself this. When you imagine staying, does your chest feel heavy? When you imagine leaving, even if it's scary, does a small sense of relief appear? That relief is often a sign of truth. It is your spirit recognizing freedom before your mind fully accepts it. The enemy's greatest strategy is to convince you that the pain of letting go is worse than the pain of staying. But that is rarely true. The pain of letting go is sharp but temporary. The pain of staying in toxicity is dull but constant. One heals, the other erodes. You may also notice increased distractions during this time. Sudden drama, sudden arguments, sudden emotional storms. These are often attempts to derail your focus. If you are overwhelmed, you are less likely to make clear decisions. If you are distracted, you are less likely to pray deeply. Chaos can be addictive. But remember this: God's voice brings clarity, even when it delivers hard truth. The enemy's whisper brings confusion, even when it sounds comforting. Clarity may hurt, but it strengthens you. Confusion may soothe temporarily, but it weakens you. Right now, you are in a spiritual tug-of-war. One voice is calling you forward. The other is pulling you backward. One is rooted in protection. The other is rooted in control. You must decide which voice you will amplify. Silence the whisper by anchoring yourself in what you already know. You know how this situation has affected you. You know how your peace has shifted. You know how your identity has been strained. Do not let fear rewrite your memory. Divine removal is not cruelty. It is correction. It is alignment. It is rescue. And every time the enemy whispers, it is often confirmation that something powerful is happening. Resistance increases when breakthrough is near. You are not weak for feeling conflicted. You are human. But you are also guided. And the voice that leads you toward freedom may challenge you, but it will never deceive you. There is always a breaking point before a breakthrough. It is the moment when the pressure feels unbearable, when your emotions are stretched thin, when you find yourself asking, why does this have to hurt this much? If God is removing something toxic from your life, you will almost certainly experience this phase. And it is often the most misunderstood part of the entire process. The breaking point is not proof that something is going wrong. It is often proof that something is finally ending. When toxicity is being uprooted, it does not leave quietly. Attachments resist separation. Familiar patterns fight to remain. Emotions flare because they sense change. You may feel overwhelmed, sensitive, easily triggered. Small things may affect you more deeply than usual. This does not mean you are weak. It means you are in transition. Think of a structure that has been standing for years but was built on a compromised foundation. When demolition begins, there is noise. There is dust. There is shaking. From the outside, it can look chaotic. But demolition is not destruction for the sake of harm. It is removal for the sake of rebuilding. God cannot construct something stable on ground that is already cracked. You may feel like you are losing control right now. Plans you relied on may be dissolving. People you depended on may be shifting. Emotions you thought were stable may be surfacing unpredictably. This is the breaking point. The place where your old coping mechanisms stop working. The place where denial no longer numbs the truth. The place where you can no longer pretend that everything is fine. And strangely, this is sacred ground. The breaking point strips away illusion. It forces honesty. It exposes where you were tolerating less than you deserved. It reveals how much you adjusted yourself to keep something alive that God was ready to end. There is pain in that realization. There is grief in acknowledging that you invested time, energy, and hope into something that could not continue. But grief does not mean you made a foolish choice. It means you are human. It means you cared. It means you tried. And God honors the sincerity of your heart, even when He redirects your path. There is also a deeper layer to this breaking point. Sometimes the toxicity you are being freed from has intertwined with your identity. You may not just be losing a situation. You may be losing the version of yourself that survived within it. That can feel disorienting. Who are you without this attachment? Who are you without this routine? Who are you without constantly managing this stress? You are about to find out. The pressure you feel right now is refining you. It is separating your true self from the survival version of yourself. For a long time, you adapted. You endured. You adjusted. Those adaptations kept you afloat, but they were never meant to define you. As the toxic element leaves, those survival layers begin to peel away, and that peeling can feel raw. You may cry unexpectedly. You may feel moments of anger followed by moments of relief. You may question whether you could have done more. These emotional waves are part of the detox. They are evidence that something deeply rooted is being removed. It is important not to misinterpret this stage. The breaking point can tempt you to run back to what is familiar just to stop the discomfort. You may think, maybe I can fix it. Maybe I can handle it. Maybe it wasn't that bad. But remember why you reached this point. Remember the heaviness. Remember the misalignment. The pressure you feel now is temporary. Going back would only reset the cycle. There is a powerful truth hidden inside this discomfort. You are stronger than you thought. The fact that you are still standing, still listening, still seeking clarity means that something resilient lives within you. The breaking point reveals strength you did not know you had. Breakthrough often comes quietly after the loudest internal storm. One day, you will wake up and notice that the weight feels lighter. The thoughts feel clearer. The anxiety has softened. The space that once felt empty begins to feel peaceful. But that breakthrough cannot come without this breaking. Right now, you are in the in-between. Not fully attached, not fully detached. Not completely healed, not completely hurting. It is uncomfortable. It is uncertain. But it is purposeful. Do not rush this phase. Do not shame yourself for feeling deeply. Let the breaking do its work. Let the tears fall if they need to. Let the questions surface. Because on the other side of this emotional intensity is stability that does not require you to shrink. You are not falling apart. You are coming apart from what was never meant to stay. And sometimes, that separation feels like breaking before it feels like freedom. When the toxic thing is finally removed, there is a silence that follows. At first, that silence can feel unfamiliar. You were so used to the noise, the emotional tension, the overthinking, the constant need to manage what was unstable. And when it's gone, the absence almost feels strange. But that silence is not emptiness. It is peace returning. One of the first things that happens after divine removal is clarity. Thoughts that once entangled begin to untangle. Decisions that once seemed impossible start to look simple. You no longer have to overanalyze every interaction. You no longer feel like you're walking on emotional eggshells. Your mind becomes quieter, and in that quiet, you start hearing yourself again. Peace does not always arrive as a dramatic wave. Sometimes it comes as a steady calm. You wake up one morning and realize you slept without anxiety. You go through your day and notice you are not bracing yourself for conflict. You laugh without forcing it. That is restoration happening quietly. Another powerful shift is the return of your confidence. Toxic environments often distort how you see yourself. They make you question your worth, your judgment, your value. But when the toxic influence is gone, your identity begins to realign. You remember what you enjoy. You remember what you believe. You remember who you were before you started shrinking. There is also an increase in spiritual strength. When you are no longer constantly drained, you have energy for growth. Your prayers feel deeper. Your discernment sharpens. You begin noticing patterns that you ignored in the past. You start setting boundaries without feeling guilty. That is maturity forming in real time. You may also notice that healthier connections begin to appear. Not always immediately, but gradually. Conversations feel lighter. Relationships feel mutual instead of one-sided. You no longer chase validation because you are no longer starving for it. God often removes toxicity to make room for alignment. But alignment cannot enter a space that is already crowded with chaos. Emotionally, you begin to stabilize. The waves of confusion calm down. The need to constantly explain yourself fades. You stop replaying old arguments in your mind. The situation that once consumed your thoughts becomes a smaller part of your mental space. That is healing. It does not erase memory, but it reduces emotional charge. There is also a deep lesson embedded in this season. You begin recognizing the early signs of toxicity faster. What you once tolerated for months, you now identify in moments. Your standards elevate, not out of pride but out of wisdom. You understand that peace is not something you negotiate away. However, there is one truth you must remember. Just because the toxic thing is gone does not mean the growth stops. Freedom requires maintenance. You will need to guard your boundaries. You will need to remain aware of old patterns trying to resurface. Healing is not a one-time event. It is a continual alignment. You may still have moments of nostalgia. You may remember certain good times and feel a brief pull backward. That does not mean you made the wrong decision. It means you are human. Missing familiarity is normal. But do not confuse familiarity with safety. You left for a reason, and your present peace is proof. As the days pass, you will notice something profound. The version of you that emerges after removal is stronger, clearer, and more anchored. You are less reactive, less desperate, less willing to accept half-hearted effort. There is a steadiness in you that was not there before. And here is the beautiful part. What God is preparing next will not require you to compromise your peace to maintain it. The future He is aligning will not demand that you silence your intuition. The next chapter will not feel like constant survival. It will feel like stability. You might not see the full picture yet. The replacement may not have fully appeared. But the space is being prepared. The soil is being refreshed. And seeds that could not grow in toxic ground will begin to sprout. You'll be glad you stayed for what's about to be revealed next, because the connection between this removal and your greater calling is deeper than you realize. Now, as a prophetic act of gratitude for what has already been cleared from your life, type peace over poison in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 528 is now activated over your life. When you declare peace over poison, you are affirming that you choose stability over chaos. You are choosing clarity over confusion. You are aligning yourself with the version of you that does not need to survive toxicity anymore. The silence you feel now is not loneliness. It is preparation. And what God is building in this quiet season will be stronger than anything that had to be removed. You are beginning to taste the quiet peace that follows my removal of what harmed you. That calm you feel is sacred ground, and from that ground I am preparing a harvest greater than you can see. But hear me, peace is not only something I restore to you, it is something I want to release through you to others who are still drowning in noise. There are many souls right now who lie awake in the same confusion you once carried. They are waiting for a voice that reminds them that poison does not have the final word, peace does. This message travels like a river through this channel, reaching hearts across nations, and I am inviting you to help keep that river flowing. My word says, give, and it will be given back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. I speak that promise over you as a living declaration today. When you support this work, you are not losing anything. You are planting seeds into a field of eternal impact. Every gift becomes oil in the lamp that shines into someone else's midnight. If your spirit feels moved right now, that is my whisper calling you into partnership. Some of you will respond through super thanks, turning gratitude into action. Some will stand faithfully through channel membership, helping sustain the voice that carried peace back into your life. Others will sow a seed through PayPal, and the PayPal link is waiting for you in the video description. I see the hands that give quietly, and I bless them openly. I will multiply the seeds you release and send favor like rain over the work of your hands. Your generosity becomes a shield of provision, a river of grace, and a light for souls who are still searching for freedom. This is not a random moment. It is a divine invitation. Respond now. Support this mission through super thanks, step into membership, or give through the PayPal link in the description, and help carry my peace to those who still need to hear it. Now that something toxic has been removed, or is in the process of being removed, there is a truth you must face with courage. Your response will determine the speed of your healing. God initiates the separation, but you participate in the restoration. Heaven opens the door, but you choose whether to walk through it fully or stand at the threshold looking back. There are two common reactions when something toxic leaves your life. The first is surrender. The second is resistance. Surrender says, God, even if I don't understand everything, I trust you. Resistance says, I'll let it go physically, but I will hold on to it emotionally. One accelerates healing, the other delays it. You can physically detach from something while still mentally replaying it every day. You can end a connection but keep revisiting it in your imagination. You can say goodbye with your mouth while holding on in your heart. And when that happens, the wound stays open longer than necessary. Obedience is not just about allowing the removal. It is about agreeing with it. It is about aligning your thoughts with what God has already decided. When you agree with the removal, peace begins to flow faster. When you constantly question it, you reopen the door to confusion. Faith over fear is essential in this stage. Fear will try to convince you that you have lost something irreplaceable. Faith reminds you that God does not subtract without planning addition. Fear says, what if this was your only chance? Faith says, what is meant for me cannot miss me. You must also guard your habits during this season. When something toxic leaves, there can be a temptation to fill the void quickly. You might rush into a new distraction. You might overwork to avoid feeling. You might seek validation to compensate for what was lost. But healing is not about replacing one attachment with another. It is about allowing space for growth. Prayer becomes more powerful now. Not desperate prayer, but aligning prayer. Instead of asking God to restore what He removed, begin asking Him to strengthen you for what He is building. Instead of praying for the return of what felt familiar, pray for the courage to embrace what is healthy. Forgiveness is another key component of accelerated healing. That includes forgiving others, but it also includes forgiving yourself. You may look back and think, I should have left sooner. I should have seen the signs. I wasted time. But self-condemnation slows progress. Growth includes learning from what you tolerated without punishing yourself for it. Gratitude also shifts the timeline of healing. When you thank God for protecting you, even when it hurt, you shift your perspective from victim to victor. You begin seeing this season not as loss, but as redirection. Gratitude softens the bitterness that could otherwise take root. There is something else that determines the speed of healing: your boundaries. If you remove something toxic but leave the door slightly open, healing becomes complicated. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are clarity. They protect the peace that God fought to restore in you. And let me say this clearly: closure does not always come from a final conversation. Sometimes closure is a decision within yourself. Waiting for someone else to give you perfect words can trap you in delay. Your healing does not depend on their understanding. It depends on your alignment. You may still have moments where the past tries to call you back. Old memories may resurface unexpectedly. Certain songs, places, or conversations may trigger nostalgia. When that happens, do not panic. A memory is not a mandate. Feeling something does not mean you need to return to it. This is the stage where discipline strengthens destiny. Small daily choices: choosing not to check on what you left, choosing not to replay old arguments, choosing not to romanticize what was toxic. These choices accumulate. They build momentum, and that momentum carries you forward faster than you realize. If this message is guiding you through a real and active transition right now, I want you to anchor yourself intentionally. Like this video as a declaration that you are choosing healing over hesitation. Subscribe to this channel if you believe God is shaping your future even through painful separations. Share this message with someone who needs confirmation that letting go is not failure, it is faith. And in the comments, write, I choose alignment. Let that be your agreement with heaven. Before we move into what comes next, understand this: your future is not delayed because something ended. It is being cleared. And what you do in this space, how you think, how you pray, how you guard your heart, will determine how quickly peace becomes permanent. Stay with me, because what is about to be revealed will show you why this removal was directly connected to something far greater than you imagined. After something toxic is removed from your life, many people expect immediate relief. They expect instant peace, instant clarity, instant strength. And while those things do come, they often arrive through a process first. That process is emotional detox. And detox, by nature, is uncomfortable before it is freeing. When you remove something your heart has grown used to, even if it was unhealthy, your system reacts. Just as a body reacts when sugar, caffeine, or another addictive substance is cut off, your emotions can react when a toxic attachment is broken. You may experience waves of sadness that seem to come out of nowhere. You may feel irritability. You may feel loneliness, even if you know the separation was necessary. This does not mean you made the wrong decision. It means your heart is recalibrating. Toxic connections often create what feels like dependency. Not always obvious dependency, but subtle reliance. You may have relied on that person, habit, or environment for validation, for distraction, for identity, for routine. And when that source is removed, there is a temporary gap. Your mind and body must learn a new rhythm. Loneliness is one of the strongest detox symptoms. Even if the situation was chaotic, it was familiar, and familiarity can feel safer than uncertainty. You may find yourself missing the routine more than the reality. You may miss the constant messaging, the predictable arguments, the emotional highs and lows. Your nervous system grew accustomed to that pattern. Now it must adjust to peace. Peace can feel unfamiliar at first. When you are used to chaos, calm can feel almost suspicious. You might find yourself waiting for something to go wrong. That hyper-alert state is part of the detox. It takes time for your body to believe that the danger has truly passed. There may also be moments of self-doubt. You might replay conversations and wonder if you were too harsh or too sensitive. You might question whether you misunderstood something. Detox brings reflection. But reflection is meant to bring growth, not guilt. Learn from what you experienced without rewriting the truth. Another part of emotional detox is confronting buried feelings. Toxic environments often force you to suppress emotions just to survive. You may have ignored disappointment. You may have minimized hurt. You may have silenced your intuition repeatedly. Now that the toxic pressure is gone, those suppressed feelings can rise to the surface. This can feel overwhelming. Tears may come unexpectedly. Anger you thought you resolved may resurface. But this surfacing is not regression. It is release. What was buried must come up so it can leave your system completely. You may also feel moments of emptiness. Not sadness, not anger. Just emptiness. That emptiness is not a void to fear. It is space. Space that was previously occupied by stress and survival mode. That space is where God begins rebuilding your foundation. During detox, you must be gentle with yourself. This is not the time for harsh self-criticism. It is not the time to rush into proving that you are strong. Strength during detox looks like patience. It looks like choosing not to go back. It looks like allowing yourself to feel without judgment. Practical steps can support this healing process. Establish new routines that bring stability. Spend time in prayer, not only asking for strength, but expressing gratitude for protection. Surround yourself with voices that reinforce truth instead of nostalgia. Protect your mind from revisiting what you have been freed from. You may also need to forgive deeply during this phase. Not just the other person, but the version of yourself that tolerated what you now recognize as toxic. You did the best you could with the awareness you had at the time. Growth means you know better now. And knowing better changes everything. There will come a day, sooner than you think, when you look back and realize the detox phase was the turning point. You will see that the loneliness strengthened your independence. The tears cleanse your perspective. The emptiness created room for purpose. The emotional detox process is not a punishment. It is purification. It is the body and spirit recalibrating to a healthier baseline. It is your nervous system learning that peace is safe. It is your heart learning that love does not require suffering. Right now, you may feel like you are in the middle of it. Not fully healed, but no longer attached. Not completely strong, but no longer broken. That middle space is sacred. It is evidence that transformation is underway. Do not rush this phase. Do not compare your healing timeline to anyone else's. Detox takes time, but it leads to clarity that cannot be shaken easily. What feels like emotional instability right now is actually emotional realignment. And as this detox completes its work, you will emerge lighter, clearer, and more anchored than you have been in a long time. Whenever God removes something toxic from your life, there is a question that quietly rises in your heart. What now? After the separation, after the detox, after the breaking and rebuilding, there is a space that feels open. And in that open space, uncertainty can try to settle in. But hear this clearly. God never removes without preparing a replacement. He does not subtract without planning an upgrade. He does not clear ground unless he intends to build something stronger on it. The problem is that we often expect the replacement to look similar to what was removed, just improved. But God's replacements are rarely replicas. They are upgrades in alignment, not echoes of the past. If He removed a toxic relationship, the replacement will not simply be someone who behaves slightly better. It will be someone who aligns with your peace, respects your boundaries, and supports your growth. If He removed a draining environment, the replacement will not just be less stressful, it will be fertile ground for your purpose. You must understand that what is coming cannot enter a crowded space. Toxicity takes up emotional, mental, and spiritual room. It demands attention. It consumes energy. It clouds the judgment. And while it occupies your life, the greater thing God prepared waits outside the door. Not because it is delayed, but because it requires space. The removal was not just about protection, it was about preparation. There is a version of you that could not meet the next blessing while still entangled in the last burden. You had to grow. You had to detox. You had to realign. The old attachment shaped you through survival. The new opportunity will shape you through strength. What God is preparing will not require you to compromise your identity to keep it. It will not demand that you silence your intuition. It will not constantly test your worth. Instead, it will confirm it. The right connections, opportunities, and environments do not leave you confused about where you stand. They bring clarity. You may not see the full picture yet, and that can be uncomfortable. After something is removed, there can be a waiting period, a quiet stretch where nothing dramatic seems to happen. But waiting is not wasting. Waiting is positioning. In this season, God is aligning details you cannot yet see. He is orchestrating circumstances behind the scenes. He is preparing people, conversations, and doors that will open at the right time. Sometimes the greatest replacement is not external, it is internal. Decreased discernment, stronger boundaries, deeper self-respect, a renewed sense of identity. Before God adds something new to your life, He often upgrades you first. Because what is coming requires a version of you that is no longer willing to settle. The future being prepared will reflect the lessons you learned. If you learn to recognize red flags, you will encounter green lights. If you learn to value peace, you will attract stability. If you learn to trust your intuition, you will move with confidence. And here is something powerful. The next chapter will not feel like constant effort to maintain. Toxic seasons require constant management. You are always fixing, adjusting, overthinking. But what is aligned flows with far less strain. That does not mean it will be perfect, but it will not constantly threaten your peace. You might still carry fear that the replacement will disappoint you again. That is natural after detox. But do not let past wounds dictate future expectations. Growth has changed you. You will not accept what you once tolerated. That alone shifts your future. There is also divine timing attached to this replacement. Just as there was a specific moment for removal, there is a specific moment for arrival. Rushing ahead of that timing can lead you back into familiar patterns. But trusting the process allows what is truly meant for you to enter without struggle. You are not being left with emptiness. You are being positioned for elevation. What felt like loss was clearing. What felt like breaking was strengthening. What felt like silence was preparation. The greater thing being prepared will match your calling, not just your comfort. It will support your spiritual growth, not just your emotional needs. It will challenge you to expand, not shrink. And when it arrives, you will recognize it, not because it feels intense or dramatic, but because it feels right. There will be a steadiness, a confirmation in your spirit, a sense that you are no longer fighting to make something work. Right now, even if you cannot see it, the replacement is forming. Conversations are being aligned. Doors are being arranged. Circumstances are being adjusted. God is not taking from you. He is transitioning you. And what is ahead is not compensation for what you lost. It is elevation beyond what you imagined. As we reach this final moment, hear the whisper behind the warning. God is crying while saying, I am removing something toxic from your life. But you must hear this first. Don't scroll past. Open before midnight. Now you understand. The tears were never about punishment. They were about protection. They were about love stepping in before damage became destiny. Midnight is here, not just on a clock, but in your spirit. The old chapter is closing. Whether you feel fully ready or not, the shift has already begun. And this final whisper is not one of fear. It is one of reassurance. You are not being punished. You are being preserved. You are not losing something essential. You are being freed from something corrosive. You are not falling behind. You are being repositioned. Everything we have walked through in this message leads to this truth. What felt like heartbreak was divine intervention. What felt like chaos was careful extraction. What felt like silence was sacred rebuilding. God's tears were the expression of a father who refused to watch his child settle for less than alignment. There will be moments, even after tonight, when you question what happened. You may revisit memories. You may wonder how things could have unfolded differently. But do not rewrite the story. The removal was necessary. The timing was intentional. And the outcome will reveal why. As this chapter closes, I want you to stand in assurance. The same God who removed is the God who restores. The same God who allowed the breaking is the God who builds stronger foundations. The same God who cried is the God who carries you forward. You have survived what you thought would destroy you. You have endured what tried to diminish you. And now, you are stepping into a cleaner, clearer, more aligned season. A midnight moment is not an ending to fear. It is an ending to toxicity. From this point forward, you will notice a difference. Your tolerance will change. Your standards will rise. Your peace will become non-negotiable. You will no longer confuse chaos with passion or instability with love. You will recognize alignment because you have experienced misalignment. And here is the promise woven into this final whisper. What God removes, He replaces with something that does not require you to bleed to keep it. You will not have to chase what is meant for you. You will not have to shrink to sustain it. You will not have to silence your intuition to protect it. The next chapter will reflect the growth this season produced. Before midnight fully passes, release any final resistance. Release the need for perfect closure. Release the desire to understand every detail. Trust does not require full explanation. It requires surrender. Take a deep breath in this moment. Feel the weight that has already begun to lift. Recognize how far you have come. The breaking did not break you. The detox did not destroy you. The separation did not define you. It refined you. And now, as a prophetic seal over this entire message, type I step into my NEW season in the comments if this resonates with you. Lesson code 909 is now activated over your life. Let that declaration mark the transition. Let it be your agreement with heaven that you are done negotiating with what harmed you. Let it be your confirmation that you trust what God is building next. May peace guard your heart. May clarity guide your decisions. May strength rise where fear once whispered. May the space that was cleared be filled with purpose, stability, and divine alignment. This was not a random message. It was a divine interruption before midnight. And as the clock turns, know this with certainty: you are not alone, you are not forgotten, and you are not behind. You are being led, and what is ahead will prove that every tear, yours and his, was worth it. You have stepped into your new season, and the midnight that once symbolized fear has become a doorway of freedom. But listen closely, because the story I am writing through you does not end here. What I delivered you from is the very testimony that will guide others out of their darkness. There are hearts across the earth still standing at their midnight hour. They are scrolling, searching, hoping to hear a voice that reminds them they are not alone. This message is part of the light I am sending into their night, and I am inviting you to help carry that light further. My word declares, cast your bread upon the waters, and after many days it will return to you. I am speaking that promise over every generous heart listening right now. When you give to support this mission, you are sowing seeds into eternity. Your offering becomes oil in the lamp, fire in the altar, and manna for souls who are starving for hope. If you feel a pull in your spirit, that is me calling you to act in faith. Some of you will release your seed through super thanks as an offering of gratitude. Some of you will become channel members, standing like pillars that help sustain this voice. Others will sow through PayPal, and the PayPal link is waiting for you in the video description. Do not underestimate what I can do with what you place in my hands. I multiply small seeds into overflowing harvests. I open doors that generosity unlocks. I surround the giver with favor, protection, and provision that follows them like a river. You are not just supporting a video. You are helping deliver messages that pull people back from despair before their midnight becomes destruction. And heaven records every act of obedience. So do not delay the sacred moment. Act now. Give through super thanks. Join the membership, or sow your seed through the PayPal link in the description, and become part of the light I am sending into the world.